And a very good afternoon to you, wherever you may be across the world. You Orn's pre-match is live and on the air. My name's Omar. Welcome aboard. I do hope that you can hear me on this brand new edition of the You Orn's Watford FC pre-match live on YouTube. Yes, it's been maybe a couple of weeks at least since the last time I've done one of these. It's been a really busy time. I do hope that you are absolutely enjoying your Saturday. I hope that you will enjoy your Saturday even more in the next few hours by the time we get to the end of Watford versus Oxford. That will be the final game that Watford play before the international break arrives, because after this game, that is what will happen for Watford and for all the clubs across England as they play their last game before the 2-week international break. This will be the second international break of the season. There are several more to come, of course. And so for Watford, this will be an important game because Watford obviously want to get off to a good start in this one. They want to get 3 points from this one. This really, I think, amounts to a must-win for Watford today. It's the game at the Vic. It's a game Watford, I think, must win. You want to go into the international break on a winning note. That would be very important, obviously, for the Golden Boys. It's been a wild time here over the last few weeks in terms of the way that Watford have played games, the way the manager has been reacted to, and the way he's done things. Obviously, the last game against Portsmouth earlier in the week created quite a stir in the 35th minute, did the manager, when he took off Iran Kunda and replaced him with Rocco Vata. It wasn't so much that he replaced him with Rocco Vata that was the issue, is that he took Iran Kunda off to begin with, and that created a stir, taking him off in the 35th minute, not even bothering to wait till half time. But the move paid dividends for Watford because in that second half, Rocco Vata wasted no time at all, bombing it down that left side, crossing the ball in for Imran Louza to score his second consecutive game to equal affairs at Fratton Park. And within 15 minutes of that, Vata himself would be the beneficiary of an assist from Musa Sissoko, who had been very quiet throughout the game. Sissoko put the ball in right at the right time, and it rebounded, ricocheted off the stomach, I think it was, of Rocco Vata. He scored against Portsmouth last season in the very same fashion at the Vic in front of the Rookery, if you remember. And he did exactly the same thing on Wednesday night at Fratton Park to give Watford a 2-1 lead. And you thought that Watford would then go on to win the game. Unfortunately for them, they did what we've done a whole lot this season, concede late goals. And it ended up as Portsmouth 2, Watford 2. I think at the end of the day, probably the result was just about right, but Watford could have won that game, still looking for their first away win. Well, that was the last game. This game today is a game Watford need to win. It's kind of like the Hull City game from, a week or so ago. Remember, Watford played last weekend, and that, if I can remember correctly, was at home against Hull. So Watford now have played 2 games in the space of barely about a week at home. This will be that second home game, sandwiching the game at Portsmouth, where they had the 2-2 draw. Now, after that Portsmouth game, before we get to this game, after the Portsmouth game, there were a number of Watford fans who wanted the head coach to go. They had had enough. Some of these fans had called up the You Orn's Watford FC post-match on X and had voiced their similar opinion after the game against Millwall that we lost. And those same fans had had absolutely enough of this head coach. Now, after the Millwall game, I had advised some of these fans who were calling for Pesolano to go after the Millwall game that they needed to give him a little bit more time. I was willing to give Paolo Pesolano until this international break after the Millwall loss, because I felt that he needed a bit more time. And if the results were going to continue down the line of the Blackburn game, down the line of the Millwall game, and if he continued to display those kinds of results up to the international break, then I said that if Gino Pozzo wanted to make a change, I wouldn't have any real problem with that at all. I would completely understand it. But what has happened instead has been, so far, since the Millwall game, a come-from-behind win against Hull, and a come-from-behind game against Portsmouth where they led 2-1, Watford did, and they ended up getting a point. So since the Millwall result and since the Blackburn result, Watford now have gone 2 unbeaten since the Millwall game. And prior to the Millwall and Blackburn losses, Watford had been 3 unbeaten. And Watford have shown you some character in these games. And some of these supporters who've been calling for Paolo Pezzolano to go are missing a really important point, I think, about character. Character is really important. And these teams, really, character is a very important thing. It doesn't show up in the table, it doesn't show up in the points total, but an important thing about a team and a team that's going in the right direction is the kind of character it shows during these games. And as far as I'm concerned, the 3 unbeaten that they had prior to the Millwall and Blackburn games, they had a win against QPR, a draw against Swansea, and a draw against Southampton. In the Swansea game, they had a 1-0 lead for a long time. In the Southampton game, they were trailing twice, 1-0 and 2-1. And they showed real character in the Southampton game to get a point. They showed character against Swansea not to blow the complete thing off the map and lose. They got a draw there. And they were very good against QPR for much of that game, although QPR really played a strong role in the second half of the game. They lost the 2 games. They played awful in the game against Blackburn. Terrible game. Didn't play that much better against Millwall. And now they've got 2 results again where they've been unbeaten. 3 unbeaten, 2 defeats, 2 unbeaten. What that's telling me for the Watford supporters is that the framework is beginning to take shape. Despite those 2 defeats in the middle, 3 unbeaten, 2 defeats, 2 unbeaten. And what I had said after the Millwall game is if he can put together some results, if he can get a point or a win at Fratton Park, and before that, can he get a win at Hull? If he can do that, I think he's going to be safe for a significant portion of this season. And I think that today, if he wins the game against Oxford, and I think Watford are going to win the game today, I don't have a scoreline, probably a 1-0 game, I think, maybe 2-1. But I think if Watford can get 3 points today, it's going to go a long way toward at least calming some of the fans down who have been calling for his head. Some of the fans, some of them. There's always going to be Watford supporters among us who are not going to be happy no matter what happens with a particular manager. They're not going to be happy with anything that happens. That's just going to be the nature of it. That's how people are. But I think the majority of the fan base are okay with this manager. Now, on social media, you're going to hear a lot of people who perhaps are a bit more vocal at their displeasure with some of the tactics that the manager uses. But what I'm telling you is, I really think that most of the fan base are all right with this manager so far. Yes, it's been a bit of a slow start, but you've got to remember, he's trying to find his feet. He's trying to find his best 11. He's still trying to get that on track. And I'll talk about that in a minute with this new lineup that he announced today. Ryan, hello to you, Ryan. Hello, Omar. Ryan says, I hope you're well. Good morning to you in San Francisco. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon to you. And also good morning to you from here in San Francisco, where it is still very early in the morning. I've got to be careful not to raise my voice too loudly around here. Don't want to wake up the neighbors, but it is very early in the morning here after 6 in the morning. But Ryan, thank you very much for those hellos from in the United Kingdom. It's great to hear from you, Ryan, as ever. It's going to be quite a game today, I think. Watford will want to get this one won early and put into bed early. No drama here. We don't want that. We want a straightforward performance with a early goal for Watford. That's what Watford need today. Settle down the team. I want to see what Watford do if they score first, because they've only done that once this season. Once. That was against Queen's Park Rangers. They also scored Well, that's the only game because against Hull they had to come from behind. In fact, in the last 5 games, Watford have trailed the last 5. So you've got to look at all of that. You also got to look at the fact that some of the fans who are calling for Pezzolano to go have to look at the fact that they've lost the 3 games that they lost 1-0, 1-0, and 1-0. They've not been blown out the building. They've not been absolutely atrocious in those 3 games. The Blackburn game probably would be the only one of those where they did not play well at all in any half. They absolutely weren't outplayed against Charlton. They weren't outplayed. Charlton were just more energetic and more vigorous than they were. They weren't outplayed. The 1-0 defeat to Millwall, I don't think they were outplayed in that game. And the Blackburn game before that, they just didn't play well at all. I don't think Blackburn outplayed them. I think Watford just didn't play well at all. So at least in all 3 of those games, Watford were not blown out the building. You've really got to look at these things. And you've also got to look at the fact that the manager has won you essentially. At least one of these games has won you. And the last 2 games, he's actually got you points with the tweak he made in the 35th minute, which I didn't agree with at the time and still don't, but it obviously led to good things for us. And then, of course, the game before that against Hull. Horrible first half. Second half, he tweaked things. Boom, they got 3 points. He tweaked things in the last game. He got 2 goals and they got a point. The Hull game, he tweaked things second half again. 2 goals in the second half. I don't know how you can have the manager go out of here. I honestly don't. Brown Electron says, morning to you, Omar. Good morning, Brown Electron. It's great to have you back here. It's good to be back here, by the way, after a couple of weeks where I've not done the pre-match. But it's great to have you aboard, Brown Electrons. Thank you very much. And Petri dropped, says Brown. Yeah, I wanted to get to the, thank you for reminding me about this because I want to get you to the lineup now. There's been 3 changes in the lineup, and Brown has talked about one of them already in the comments. Petri has dropped from the starting lineup. And all I can say about that, and I'll read the rest of the lineup in a minute, but Brown, all I can say about that is as far as it looks to me, he wants to give these players a shuffle and a rest. I don't know why he wants to do that because generally all these players are under 26 years old, pretty much, with the exception, of course, of Loser and Sissoko, maybe one other player, Kayembe maybe, but they're all under the age of 26 or under the age of 27. Petri, I think, is 27 or 28. But the bottom line is Petri should not be dropped. I mean, he had a fantastic game on Wednesday at Fratton Park. I totally agree with you, Brown. I just think that's a very strange one. But this manager, he really does believe in keeping the squad fresh. I put out 2 episodes of the You ORNS podcast yesterday. The one that I didn't release from the Hull game, and then the one that I did for the Portsmouth game, post-Portsmouth match the other day. Released both of those yesterday on Apple and Spotify. So please listen to those if you haven't had a chance at some point. I talked about the notion of trying to drop players and shuffle the deck so much. And I really don't like the fact that he's doing that because you do want some continuity in the side and you do want a kind of cohesiveness around the starting lineup. So then you can plug 1 or 2 players in rather than making more than 2 changes. He's made 5 changes in some games. He's made 6 changes against Blackburn. He admitted that he got it wrong against Blackburn. That's another reason why I don't want to see this manager go anywhere so soon or anywhere yet. The manager admitted that he got it wrong against Blackburn. He admitted that. And you don't, I mean, you do get some managers who admit when they get it wrong. But this manager, so early in his tenure at Watford, for him to admit that he got the lineup wrong and he got the preparation wrong for Blackburn, that's actually a good quality to have. I talk about that in the most recent You ORNS podcast episode entitled Defending Paolo Pezzolano, where I talk about some of this. That's a good quality for a manager, that you want a manager like that, who actually does have some self-awareness, who recognizes that he did get something wrong, rather than the manager who is so set in his ways. So when the fan base is giving him hell, he just doesn't care. This manager does care and he doesn't care. He's not here to make friends, as you know, that video that went around on Watford socials. He didn't care. He doesn't care whether he's not here to make friends. Whether you like him or not is not the point. He wants to get results and he wants players to improve. I respect him for that, you know. And there, the bottom line is Petrie shouldn't be dropped, Brown. I think that he should not be dropped. He'll probably come into this game at some point today. But for me, why are they dropping him? Don't make any sense to me. It's a 3-5-2 again, it looks like. He's made 3 changes today in the lineup. Let's see if I can get them off the top of my head. Wiley starts. Wiley comes in. He didn't start from the start last time. Also, Kevin returns to the side. He did not play any role at all on Wednesday. And there was one other change. Rocco Vata, who was so electrifying in his return to the start when he got subbed in on Wednesday, starts from the beginning as well in this game. So those are the 3 changes to the lineup. Otherwise, everything else is as it was, as you were. Semedo will be up top with Iran Kunda. The air has been cleared around the Iran Kunda situation. The manager said through the Watford Observer that he and Iran Kunda had a conversation and the air is clear. Good, because I was worried about that because you can alienate your star player. 19, you want to be careful with that. And he was right to be upset, Iran Kunda, the other night. I give him a break. I'm not upset with him for getting mad about that. You don't take someone off in the 35th minute. I don't care who they are. He was not having a horrible game. He wasn't. He was not the worst player on the pitch when he got taken off. And so you can understand why Iran Kunda the other night was not happy. Let me read out the rest of your comments here. Did you see, says Ryan, at our last game where Iran Kunda got subbed off early? I can't remember if you gave your thoughts. Yes, it's so interesting because, Ryan, I just looked at your message just after I just said what I said about Iran Kunda. So I apologize if I didn't see your message earlier than that. My point again, and I did on the podcast, I talked a lot more about this in the defending Paolo Pezzolano title of the last episode of the podcast, which I released yesterday. I did release 2 episodes yesterday. One that I should have released earlier that I had recorded but didn't release against Hull, and then the one after the Portsmouth match, which is called Defending Paolo Pezzolano. You can check it out on Apple and on Spotify. All right, so please download those podcasts, subscribe to them, and pass them around to Watford friends and family alike, and anyone else in football that is interested in podcasts. So yes, I've already given my thoughts and did that just now, Ryan. I don't think that he should have been subbed off. I think it should have been at halftime. I would have had no problem with him taking Iran Kunda off at halftime if he did exactly the same thing. To me, it just didn't make any sense. Just wait till halftime. It's only 10 minutes away. Now, he didn't have an injury. He didn't play poorly. It was obviously a tactical switch, but wait till halftime to do it. That you really show up a player, and you could actually dent a player's confidence like that, especially a young player like Iran Kunda. You don't do that to a younger player like that, away from home as well, even at home, whatever, you just don't do that before halftime. If he's injured, understandable. If he's playing like a dog's dinner, that's understandable in them cases. But I'm sorry, a tactical switch at the 35th minute, wait till halftime, But anyway, it's all done now. They've had the conversation. Hopefully now everything is under the bridge. Matty Pollock says that the team is united behind the manager and that they love playing for him. I have no reason to think that Matty Pollock is lying to us. But the bottom line is that, look, sometimes you do have these things. Players react angrily to decisions that get made. And usually it doesn't matter if they're veterans or younger players. I give a younger player a bit more slack because he's young, he's 19, he's going to have that, right? Veteran players are usually a bit different, but I've seen Loser get irritated on the pitch. And look what he got. He got sent off a few weeks ago against QPR. Veteran players know better. I give Iran Kunda a pass. Manager should never have pulled him off the pitch in the 35th minute. Ryan says, I can't remember if you gave your thoughts. Yes, indeed, I have. Does Scott Duxbury, our chairman, Ryan said, and Gina Pozzo watch our home games every week. Ryan, yes, they do. I think they do. Duxbury and Pozzo do. The home games you're talking about, yes. They are there, whether they are in the skyboxes or in the boxes, or whether they're actually out in the seats that you see in that director's box area, or inside, the hospitality area, wherever those private suites are that they sit in. Either one of those, but they do watch the games every week, as far as I know, at home, and sometimes you'll see the owner on the road as well, and you'll see Scott on the road as well. But yes, Duxbury, as far as I know, and the owner do watch the home games every week, so I definitely expect to see them there again. And if you don't see them, they probably are around the place, and especially for an international break. Now, one thing I will say, Ryan, and I'll read out the rest of the comments that are following here in a moment. Um, there are going to be some of us as Watford supporters who might be holding our breath during this international break, because it is notorious that the owner of this club that we love gets rid of managers during international breaks. Now, obviously, the first international break way too early, and some of the fans calling for the manager to go after 6 games, which was the 6th game was against Millwall. Small sample size, too early for me. After the game against Portsmouth, the 8th game of the season in the Championship, too small a sample size. But with this owner, who knows? Remember, Cisco Munoz, who got us promoted from the Championship into the Premier League, lasted just 7 games in the Premier League. The game against Leeds, we lost it 1-0 several years ago, and that international break came up right now. This would have been the same international break from 3 or 4 years ago. 4 years ago. And the manager got sacked during this coming October international break 4 years ago. Mix of indifferent results like this. I don't think the man's getting sacked during this international break, and I don't think he should. Manager from a different country, never managed English football prior to this season. New players, 14 different players or so coming in, right? Half of these players are under the age of 27. Most of these players under the age of 27. It's going to need time. It's going to need time. And the Watford fan base is just going to have to be a bit more patient. I know we've got a lot of demands, given everything, given the window that we had that was so good in the summer. The Watford fan base needs to be a little bit more patient here. Give this man a chance, because I'm on board with the manager, and I've had some disagreements with some of the things he's done. He don't care what I think. He don't care what any Watford fan thinks. But the bottom line here is that we need to give the man a chance. 8 games is a small sample size. You don't really get to see a table take shape till the 10th game. After 10 games, we're not going to get to 10 games yet, and this is going to be the second international break. I say that we really should give the man a chance. Yes, some of the tactics are a little bit strange. Some of the lineups are a little bit strange. Petri being dropped today, to me, makes no sense. But I do think there's a method to the madness here of Paolo Pezzolano. He's getting results. You might not like him, some Watford fans, but the man's getting you results. The last couple of games, his tweaks made a difference. The Hull game and the game against Portsmouth. And we fell behind after 5 minutes against Portsmouth. And the man saw something he didn't like, made the change. Second half, within 30 seconds, we equalize. 10 minutes after that, we are ahead. I mean, he must be doing something right. He must be doing something right. So, listen, I'm not in any hurry to see him go. I'm not one of them calling for his head. And we'll see what happens today. Optimally, we want to win. And if we get a win today, I think that goes a long way towards calming some of the Watford fans who are calling for his head down a little bit. But there's always going to be people who don't like him, or who don't like a manager. And some of this is to do with Tom Cleverley. I think some of the fans who don't like this manager are also thinking about the way Cleverley was treated. He wasn't backed. Now this manager's backed. He comes in and look what he's doing. It's not great yet. I understand that. Give the man a chance. Now, let's get to the rest of these comments, shall we? Thank you very much, Ryan, for yours. Brown Electro says, I don't mind a disciplinary manager, but I just think Paolo isn't getting the best out of this team, says Brown. We still don't really have a pattern of play. Brown, I understand what you're saying. It's just going to take a little bit more time. Most of these players have not played. A lot of these players have not played in England before. I think the new. I'm talking about new players now. The only one who I can think of who has played in English football before is obviously Hector Cipriano. Hector is not starting this game for the second game running. Excuse me. For he did start the game against Portsmouth, but he's not starting the game here. And he was not great, Hector, on Wednesday. He had a poor game. This is the worst game he's played this season. It's the first time this season that Hector was not any good. And so he was out of there second half. If you wanted to sub somebody in the first half, and I don't believe in first half substitutions unless it's an injury or a player's just so abject, I think Hector should have been subbed in earlier than he was. I mean, he was awful in this game. But I understand what you're saying, Brown. We don't have a pattern of play. I still think that's being established. And I still think it takes, when you're dealing with a new manager, at least 10, maybe even 15 games before you begin to see what the manager's doing. And the players still have to understand what the manager wants. I do think that gets complicated, Brown, by the fact that the manager keeps chopping and changing these starting lineups. That's part of this for me as well. But I think that might be part of the reason why we don't yet have a pattern of play or a style of play, which is what a lot of other people in the fan base who, I'm not saying you want him gone necessarily, I have to read the rest of your comments, but some of the fans who want him gone from here are voicing that very same point that you're making, Brown, about the pattern of play. The identity ain't there, the style of play ain't there. But I'm saying, I think that's going to come from this Watford manager. It's just two things. One, they're still trying to fashion that, and he's still trying to find what lineup works for him to implement that best. And on top of that, Brown, I also think it's because, again, these players are still trying to find their feet with this manager. And it does take time for a brand new manager to get those things bedded in. It really does. It does. And some managers who've not played it, who've not managed in England before, it takes a bit longer. It really, really does. I think what happened with Cisco, and I want to bring up Cisco for a minute, Brown. With Cisco, I think Cisco said, play your football, play your personality. So he took a lot of pressure off of them. He wanted them to be who they were as footballers. And he'd put out a structure, he'd put out a shape, but he would say, look, go out there and be yourself, be aggressive, be who you are, express yourself. And that worked. And plus, he was a man's manager. He was a great player's manager, Cisco. The lads remember Cisco a few years ago? They loved him. They mobbed him. They treated him like he was a brother, like he was a fellow player, not like he was a manager. And that worked for the lads for a long time until it started not to in the Premier League season where things were a little bit different. So those are my reasons, I think, Brown, for why this is happening. I think the style of play is going to happen. But what you're seeing, though, Brown, is character. You can't deny that. Any Watford fan watching this can't deny that there's character in this team. Coming from two goals from a goal down twice against Southampton, holding on to points at a very difficult place to win, Swansea, and also coming from a goal down against Hull and coming from a goal down against Portsmouth. That's back-to-back games. That's character. I mean, character counts for a whole lot, like I said earlier. And I really, really think that some of the fan base is missing this stuff about character. Because if you want to have a successful team, if you want a promotion-winning team or a title-winning team, character has got to be a part of the equation. And I would say even before a style of play is really established, character is most important. Why? Because character gets you through adversity. Character gets you through tough times. Character builds your spirit and gets you stronger. And it also breeds experience for you. And character is an intangible that don't show up in the table. It don't show up in the wins, the draws, the losses, the goals against, the goals for, or the points column. It shows up on the pitch and the spirit of the team. And sometimes it's not about formation. Sometimes it's not about the style of play. Sometimes it's about getting over the line. In these championship games, a lot of this is about getting over the line and getting a result and having the character to do it. Now, I would love, like you, Brown, to see a real style of play develop. I would like to see a consistency in the team selection, which is not there with this manager. So he does make things interesting. He's not boring in that way, right? We've had some real boring managers here, like Ivic, who they got rid of immediately after like 8 games or whatever the hell it was. Whenever it was, I forget when he was sacked. It was around December of 2020, right? When Ivic was as dry as paint. Remember the Boxing Day match in 2020? That was the first match in charge for Cisco. And of course, what happened? Watford scored by a 1-0 scoreline. Who scored the goal against Norwich that day? Is a big hint. Who scored the goal against Norwich on that December 26, 2020 match? There's a very big clue here in front of you, right? So the goal scorer, I don't know if you can see who the goal scorer is, but that's a big, big hint. There was only 1 goal scored in that game, Watford against Norwich, when Cisco was in charge, the very first game in charge. Nobody in the stadium because, of course, it was during COVID. The man behind me, he scored the only goal of the match. So the bottom line is that it's really important to have character. And the bottom line is that, yes, this manager does rub people the wrong way. He doesn't give a rat's what we think of him. He doesn't care what the players think of him. He's there to get results. And I respect that about him. Actually, I like that about him. Do I like that he changed the lineup? No. Do I like that he takes off Iran Kunda after 35? No. Do I like that he subs on Barr in the 85th minute at Portsmouth? Hell no. You cannot have Barr on the bench until the 85th minute of a game. And I understand he makes these lineups based on training, but come on, Barr makes a whole lot of difference when you bring him on a pitch. You can't bring him on 5 minutes left in the game. I'm sorry, that's just ridiculous for me. So I have my criticisms of the manager, but I'm willing to give him a chance. Ryan says some fans don't like him, Omar. I don't mind him personally, but Omar, Pesolano needs to start winning games. On Do Not Scratch Your Eyes, a Watford FC channel, done a phone in, and fans wanted him sacked. But I disagree with some Watford fans. I get yes on Do Not Scratch Your Eyes. Yes, 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 indeed. I know that's the talk of the Watford town, is that should he stay or should he go? Should he be sacked or should he stay? Yes, there are Watford fans who want him sacked. Yeah, I've been you look across social media. There's a lot of fans who want him sacked. I'm not one of them. I don't think he should be going yet. I don't think he should be going anywhere yet. I think the man needs to be given a chance. And there's some Watford fans who have called in to the YOU ORNS Watford FC post-match who have said the same, who also agree with me that the manager should not be going anywhere yet. One fan said, hey, what is sacking the manager now going to get you? I'm just paraphrasing the comment that he made to the channel that I have. And I agree with him. I read his comment out, and I agree with that fan. What now? If you sack Pesolano now in the international break, where's that get you? And then bringing a manager who has a style of play, but they don't get results from. One thing that's really important here, if you believe what's coming out of the mouth of Matty Pollock, is that this team is all behind him. The players are all behind him. Yes, there was an outburst by Iran Kunda. There's a lot of stuff that fans don't usually see that happens in dressing rooms where you've got players upset about something. But we don't normally see that. I'm sorry, the Watford social media channel is not going to be showing you the worst moments. They're going to show you all the good stuff, right? But these outbursts that happen with players and with managers happens a lot more than you think, a lot more than we get to see. So, I actually believe that the young lad's got a lot to learn. He's young, 19 years old. He's a very good player. The manager can't. I think the manager's got to be careful about subbing him off early in a game like that. Um, but as far as Matty Pollock's telling us, and I got no reason to disbelieve Matty Pollock, the team loves playing for him. The team are behind him. And I've not seen any issue with chemistry on the pitch. I think there is chemistry on the pitch, even though there isn't an identity yet. There is chemistry. I don't see any. I mean, really, there's not been any discipline issue except for the one issue with loser. There's not been any major headlines like that coming out of the Watford camp or the Watford ranks. If this manager goes on a 4-game losing streak, then I can start to look at whether or not the manager should be replaced. Then I'll start to go perhaps in the direction of some of those Watford supporters. But I'm sorry, 3 1-0 defeats on the season, 2 wins at the moment. Before this game, 2 wins, 3 draws, 3 defeats. Each of those defeats were 1-0 defeats. Late goal against all these games they lost 1-0 in were either late or early goals. Late goal against Charlton. Okay. First game of the season. I really give that one a wash. I don't even really pay attention to that. But it's a defeat nonetheless. First game of the season. The game they lost 1-0 against Blackburn, they were terrible in. That was an early goal in the second half of the game. The game they lost to Millwall, they were not great in that game either. Better than against Blackburn, but not nearly as bad as Blackburn, but they still had the same result. Early goal. 10th minute goal. All these goals they've been conceding, whether they've won or lost games, are early or late in the games. Happened against Portsmouth, early and late. Against Southampton, early goal. 9th minute goal, Cameron Archer, right? All of Watford's problems are not to do with this manager. All of Watford's problems are to do with our defense as a team defense. Our defense as a team stinks at times, right? Right? That's what has led to these results. We haven't played well. Yes, there isn't an identity at present. That's still being built. Character is a very important thing. And I think a lot of these Watford fans who are missing the aspect of character are missing the aspect of character in this whole thing. You've got to establish a character in your team because you can have all the style of play you want. But if a team goes down 1-0 and doesn't fight back and doesn't have that personality and that character to fight back, what the hell does a tactic mean? What the hell does a style of play mean if they ain't got no character? Character is something that filters from the manager. It comes from within the players. The manager filters it down into the players. And you can't have character if these players don't like him. They wouldn't be showing you the character they do. Trust me on that. They would not be showing you the character that they've shown you. If they really don't like playing for this manager, they wouldn't show you the character that they're showing you right now. To come from behind against Portsmouth, to come from behind against Hull, to come from a goal down twice against Southampton. You don't get that in a team that don't like its manager. What you get from a team that doesn't like its manager is that they sit down and they give up. Tell me a game this season where Watford have just given up. It's not happened, even in the Blackburn game. They've not given up. They've not laid down. And I think if you'd seen that during the time and you've been watching these games this season, I would have a different look at the manager. And I'd be like a lot of the Watford fans. In that instance, I would be going, yeah, I'm going to take a real look at this. I'm not so sure this is going to be good. But what I think you need now is patience. And I understand the fan base is wants him out, some of them, because again, there were high expectations. The owner wants promotion. The players were brought in here. Great summer window, the best I think we've ever had. And obviously the fans will want more. I want more too as a Watford supporter. But I realize that it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time. And some fans are very impatient. And I can understand it. But let's give the man a chance for at least. Again, I don't know how many more games, but for me, I think he should stay until I see results going way off the cliff. I'm happy with him being here. I think we should get behind the manager. I know that's going to be hard for some Watford supporters, but there we go. Cisco Disco, says Brown. And Gaspar, no, Gaspar didn't score. And you said this earlier. Definitely it was Saw, as I said earlier. Bar, says Brown, needs at least a half, not like 5 to 10 minutes. Yep, I mentioned that earlier before you made those comments. Um, I mentioned that earlier. I think we maybe said that today. I said that maybe this just a few minutes ago before, and maybe you mentioned it as well after that. But yeah, Barr needs to play more than 5 or 10 minutes in the game. I don't care what the manager's trying to do. You cannot put one of your best players, because Iran Kunda right now is Watford's best player. Some might say Imran Loser. I'm saying Iran Kunda is your best player. He's your most talented player. He's your most skilled player. Imran Loser is looking for 3 straight games with goals now. How about that? Since his advanced role. See, this is the manager. See, this is the thing that people overlook. Imran Loser scored in 2 straight games, and that's with the managerial tweak. He did that tweak by putting Loser in a much more advanced role, in an advanced attacking position on the pitch, and he scored against Hull, and he scored against Portsmouth. That's the manager doing that. But again, some people to me have an animus against the manager. It's not only the tactics and only the results, it's also he came in here when Cleves should not have gone. And I think they tie those two things together. And I think anyone who'd come in after Cleves and done a very uneven start through 8 games was always going to get stick from some of the Watford fans. Always, no matter who it was. It could have been Sir Alex coming in here. It could have been Pep coming in here. There still would have been some resentment, I think, from some of the fan base, not only because of the results, which obviously are a key reason for a lot of fans, but for some fans, there's also this tie-in to Tom Cleverley, and that Tom Cleverley should have been backed in the summer or through the time he was here, the way that this new manager has been backed with an excellent window. That part, to me, plays a role in some of this with some of these fans who want him gone. And I don't think some of them are admitting that. Some of them might be, but some of them are not. Billy Hughes, hello, Billy, says, hey, Omar, how are you? I'm feeling great. I'm doing great. I'm feeling great. I'm looking forward to this game in the next 5 or 6 minutes. It kicks off shortly. Billy, thank you very much, and hello to you. And how are you, Billy? How are you doing today? All right. Thanks for calling in and saying hello, Billy. I agree. Barr is great off the bench, says Billy. Gives us a push after halftime. Thank you, Billy Hughes, for your comments. I really appreciate those. We are now 5 minutes away from Watford versus Oxford. And what I want to say to you, fellow Watford supporters, is thank you very much indeed for joining. Please subscribe to the You ORNS on Substack. I gave away a shirt here last week on Substack, on the video live on Substack. I'll be doing more live Substack videos coming up, so please stay tuned. I'm going to type in the actual address so that you can subscribe, just in case you don't know what the address is. It's YouOrnsWFC, the number 1.substack.com. I have just put that in now, and you should see it there coming into the chat. I will pin it to the top of the chat as well. So please subscribe to YouOrnsWFC, the number 1.substack.com. I would really appreciate that as well. Billy Hughes says, I'm feeling great. That's good to hear, Billy. Great to hear that. We will see after the match, though. Yes. That's the key, Billy. We will see after the match, whether we're feeling great or not as a Watford fan base. I want to thank you, Billy, for your comments. Brown, Ryan, and everyone who has commented today, thank you so very much indeed for doing so. I'll be back here right after the match between Watford and Oxford for You ORNS Watford FC post-match, and also live on X as well at You ORNS WFC. Join me there if you want to call in and have your say and speak to all of us as Watford supporters, or if you don't, make some comments on X, please, as well, and make some comments right here. I'll be reading those out as well. It's great to have you here. Thank you very much for making some time here, fellow Watford supporters, on this edition of the You ORNS pre-match. Watford versus Oxford is coming up in about 4 minutes time, 3 minutes time now. Don't forget also to subscribe to the You ORNS podcast. Of course, that's on Apple and on Spotify. I've released 2 new episodes yesterday, one for after the Hull game and one for after the Portsmouth game. And of course, I'll be doing another episode after this Watford versus Oxford contest coming up as we get to our second international break. I thank you so much, everyone. Take care. And again, Watford versus Oxford coming up in minutes. Be well, be good, and I'll see you back here right after the end of the game. Take care and be well, everyone, and see you after the match.